Welcome to Module 4, Setting Goals with Your Learner. We'll be reviewing in this module how to get to know your learner, elements of the goal-setting process, tips for setting goals, and how to match goals with learning objectives and evaluate them. Finally, we will look at a sample profile and what goals we can infer from their profile. During your first meeting with your learner, you're going to want to take some time to get to know each other. You will have some basic information about the learner from your tutor coordinator, but there is more you will learn about your learner in the first meeting and also over time. You're not going to be friends with your learner, neither are you their confessor or counselor. You are their tutor or teacher, if you will, and that makes you an authority figure in their life. This puts the learner in a vulnerable position. It's scary to come forward and ask for help. So you're not going to interrogate them in their first meeting. You're trying to put them at ease and get the information you need to build their learning plan. So the objectives of this module are getting to know your learner, the elements of the goal setting process and tips for setting those goals, matching goals with the learning objectives and the evaluation, how to develop SMART goals using a sample from a learner profile, and then also identifying the 4 types of assessment. Let's start with getting to know your learner. So how do you go about getting to know your learner better? It may take a few sessions to get the whole picture, but it'll come as you begin to build a relationship. We suggest using open-ended questions and questions which will garner more than a simple yes or no answer. When your learner shares important information with you, remember it. Write it down if you need to. You may need to be careful when asking about family, especially if they have unpleasant or traumatic experiences. The personal details your learner tells you are confidential, and they may tell you more as trust develops. Be sensitive and respectful of the information they share with you. An important part of building mutual trust with the learner may include telling them a little bit about yourself. It will help them feel safe and comfortable in this new relationship. But be careful not to share more than you are comfortable with a stranger knowing. So what sort of questions can you ask about? Interests, hobbies, and activities. Favorite subjects when they were in school. Travel or vacation plans. Reading experiences. Their job or volunteer experience. Family and friends. Let's look at some sample questions. What kind of activities do you like to do? What kind of movies or television programs do you like best? Why? What sort of book or story do you enjoy? Again, probe for some more information and ask why. In your spare time, what do you like to do? Did you have a favorite subject in school? What was it? You can probe this further by saying, what made this a positive experience? Was there a time when you enjoyed reading? Are there things in your job or life that you need to be able to read, but you cannot? What do you currently do? How do you get your news now? And this is always a fun one. If you won the lottery, $1 million, say, what would you do? These are open-ended questions meant to get your learner talking about themselves. With some luck, they could lead to additional questions. For instance, if you asked about what they would do if they won the lottery and they say they take their daughter to Disney World, you could ask them about their child's favorite Disney character or movie. Depending on your learner, there could be other questions that would provide more insight. This is a list of some questions you may want to include in your discussion with your ESL learner. Again, try to keep it conversational. It's not an interrogation. You could share some information here about your own history. If your grandparents came from another country or perhaps spoke another language when they first arrived, it may help your learner to know that and to build rapport. Some questions you may ask include, what is your first language? How old were you when you learned to speak English? When did you come to Canada? What did you study at school in your native country? Did you read and write in your own language? What language do you speak at home with your family? These probing questions can help you learn a little bit more about your learner. So if we're looking at our learner's history, what kind of things do you read or write now? What about that do you find difficult? How do you cope with these tasks? Do you have any problems with your eyesight or your hearing, which may make this more difficult? What have you found helps you in learning new things? Is it easier to remember a phone number by hearing it, seeing it, or dialing it? Smart goal setting. Each council may do things a little differently, but generally the tutor coordinator will provide an initial learning plan and goals to the tutor. This may be in a session that includes the learner or in a meeting just between yourself, the tutor, and the tutor coordinator. This may be the initial goals, but over time you will be able to create more with your learner. Goals should be SMART. And by that we mean the S is specific, M is for measurable, A is attainable, R is realistic, and T is time. So we want them to be done not only in a timely manner, but within a set period of time for that goal. Let's look at some of the elements of the goal setting process. Identify short and long-term goals. Break goals down into small segments and be as specific as possible. Determine steps to achieve each goal. What will you need to do? Determine which goals are the most important to work on first. Develop a timeline for accomplishment of each goal. Identify how you will know when a goal is reached. Record each goal in the Learning Goals section of the database. Revisit it frequently and add progress notes or completion dates when accomplished. Celebrate your accomplishments. These are some tips and may seem repetitive, but it is with repetition that we all learn. Include your learner in the planning process. Ask your learner what they hope to accomplish. Establish realistic timeframes for achieving the goal. Have both short and long-term goals. Review the goals often because they can change. When we say establish realistic timeframes, I'm going to expand on that for just a moment. If we have a new learner whose goal it is to read a book, but you are starting with at the very beginning with learning the alphabet, well, you're not going to be able to get there in 3 months or 6 months, and it would be unrealistic to have the learner think that that is going to be achievable. So you're going to break it down into further steps. Perhaps we're going to learn the alphabet, and you're going to learn that in the first month. Or you're going to be able to read this paragraph at a very low reading level, perhaps, after X period of time. So we're going to want to take it in very achievable steps, because if we have a learner who is wanting to be able to read a book and they're starting at the very beginning, after they see month after month after month go by without being able to read a book, they're going to think that, perhaps there's something wrong with them. Perhaps they're not achieving the level they should be achieving. They're going to start getting a little downhearted about it. And we want to keep this a very positive experience, and having short, achievable goals and celebrations for those goals. And I'm not talking parties for every single one, but just a chance to acknowledge the goals that they've met is going to keep that learner interested and help with persistence. The new database includes a section where you can easily view the goals you and your learner have set. You can have multiple goals and you can refer back to them so you can update them accordingly. You can write in the goal and categorize it if appropriate. Under intervention results, you can choose whether it's in progress, has shown improvement, it's completed, or it's incomplete or abandoned. And don't feel bad about incomplete or abandoned. Sometimes they just become less important as time goes on. You can update this multiple times if you wish throughout the learner's journey. You can add the start date for each one, and when they complete the goal, add in the date that it was accomplished. Learning objectives. What are some of the learning objectives we may hear from our learners when they come to us for support? They may want to improve their reading, or their comprehension skills, or their writing, or their spelling, or their math, or their budgeting. Maybe they want to improve their computer skills, or prepare for the GED, or improve their understanding of spoken English. Next, we're going to look at some of the common learning goals that we see. So a learning goal could be read a menu, understand my water bill, read green eggs and ham to my grandson, send an email, look up the news online, write my name, understand what my son's teacher is telling me in a report, read a prescription. So how would you evaluate each of those? For read a menu, well, can they order on their own at a restaurant? Understand their water bill. Well, can they navigate the water bill and answer questions about it? For reading green eggs and ham, can they read it? Send an email, have them email you. Look up the news online. Maybe you can have them help find CBC online. Write their name. Well, if they can write their name and sound it out, that is a pretty good evidence that they've accomplished it. Understand what my son's teacher is telling me. Well, can they be comfortable in a conversation with the teacher? So whether that's a report in person or perhaps it's a written report. Read a prescription. Can they understand what the directions on the prescription mean? That can be as simple as bringing in a Tylenol bottle and having them read the instructions and summarize it back to you. So we're going to look at an example learner profile. This is Alvina's story. Although Alvina's brothers and sisters went to school, she was kept home to help with household chores. Now that her children are grown, she would like to learn to read and write. So we've been lucky here. We are told up front what her learning objectives are: reading and writing. Alvina is a mother and grandmother. She left her rural home when she was about 18 and worked as a live-in housekeeper for a city family. Since marrying, she has helped manage the family-run businesses. She has 4 children and 5 grandchildren. The youngest, a 2-year-old girl, is the apple of her eye. They spend a lot of time together. Okay, here we learn a little about her background. We get a sense that she is resourceful if she's helped to run businesses despite struggling with her literacy. We also get a glimpse at what could be a reason for her seeking help now: her grandchildren. At the start of tutoring, Alvina recognized most alphabet letters and knew some of the sounds. She recognized some words on sight. She could use consonant letters to spell words when they were dictated and could sign her name. She knew the order of the alphabet. She had used alphabetical order to keep track of files in the family business. Okay, here we get a sense of where we need to start with her learning plan, which we'll review in the next module. We get a sense of where she is also struggling. Alvina would like to be able to read a story to her youngest grandchild and one day help the others with their homework. She loves cooking, but can only do recipes she creates or has done for many years. She wants to try new things and would need to be able to read a recipe to do that. Okay, this confirms our suspicion. Her grandchildren are the main reason she's seeking help at this time. We get a good sense of her goals. Can we list them? Read a story to grandchild, help grandchildren with homework. You may want to find out what subjects in particular. And she wants to be able to read a new recipe and write out her own recipes to share with friends. Here you'll see an example of how we've identified her learning goals and then aligned the objective and evaluation with each of the goals. You will note that there is some ambiguity with regard to her helping her grandchildren with their homework. So as a tutor, you would need to ask more questions to get to the bottom of what she wants to accomplish here. Improve reading is a learning objective. The learning goal: read to grandchildren. The evaluation method: can she read the books to her grandchild? Learning objective: this is unclear. Reading, writing, maybe math. The goal was help grandchildren with their homework. So we're going to need some more information. The read recipes. Well, so to do that, she's going to have to improve her reading and her vocabulary, probably. The evaluation method. Well, can she read and cook successfully new recipes? The last learning goal, write out her recipes to share with family and friends. So she's going to need to improve her writing skills. And to do that, we're going to have to be able to evaluate that by seeing a recipe that she has written on her own. Here we've started a chart for the goals, showing you how you may decide to make them SMART. How is it specific? It's a shortbread recipe. Is it measurable? Yes, because once it's done, it's done. We can check it off. Is it attainable? Looking at her current skill set and timeline, Christmas of next year, yes, it's attainable. Is it realistic? Again, given her skill set and timeline, we believe it is. It's also a very simple recipe with only a few ingredients and very few instructions. You can try to fill out the next two goals on your own. Additionally, we've included with the PowerPoint on the webpage a document called Learner Profiles. Here you will find Alvina's story and these charts, but also 3 additional learner profiles with charts that you can fill out on your own for practice. The document also has a number of task lists that may help you when trying to turn a learner's objectives into concrete goals. The role of assessment. We use ongoing evaluation to measure and celebrate the learner's progress, check off goals that have been accomplished, and establish new short and long-term goals, as well as to make any needed changes to the instructional approach. Ongoing evaluation usually occurs at specific milestones. These milestones may be based on time in the program, for instance, every 4 or 6 months, or hours of instruction, maybe at 40, 50, 80, or 100 hours of instruction, or it can be on completion of a project or a level in a set of published materials. There are 4 types of evaluation or assessment. Standardized tests. These provide a snapshot of the student's reading and writing abilities. The difference in scores between each time the test is taken is an easy way to demonstrate progress. One standardized test we use is the assessment tool in Learning Upgrade, our online learning app. The focus of standardized tests is illustrated by the statement, the results of the test indicate the student can read and write as well as the average student in grade blank. Materials-based. This form of assessment helps determine where to place a learner in a specific set of instructional materials, and then continues to measure how well the learner has acquired the skills taught in those materials. Many published materials will have an initial placement test, periodic checkups such at the end of a chapter, and a final assessment which covers the skills learned throughout the entire series. They provide guidance as to whether the student is ready to move to the next statement. The focus of materials-based assessments is illustrated by the statement. The student has mastered the skills taught in the following materials. Competency-based. This kind of assessment measures a learner's ability to apply basic skills to accomplish specific tasks in functional contexts. The individual tasks are usually associated with a longer-term goal, and checklists are often used as a way to show progress toward that goal. For example, if a learner wants to get their driver's license, a checklist for a competency-based assessment might include that the learner can read the driver's manual, was able to identify traffic signs by shape, and was able to explain the right of way. Competency-based assessment is best summed up with the sentence, the student is able to use his or her reading and writing skills to perform the following functional tasks, and then list the task. And performance assessment. Performance assessment focuses on why the learner came to the program, what the learner wants to do with his or her new skills, and how the learner currently uses these skills in his or her own life. Performance assessment involves the learner and the tutor in conversations about changes in literacy behaviors and the use of literacy inside and outside the classroom. The focus of performance assessment is summed up with the sentence, The student has used his or her new skills, such as reading, writing, or math, in the following ways. Each of the assessments mentioned above has their own strengths and weaknesses. Standardized tests are easy to quantify. Materials-based assessments provide detailed, regular insight into the student's learning. Competency-based assessments demonstrate clear progress toward the student's goals. And the performance assessments show long-term impact on the student's life. A good assessment process will include multiple types of assessment to get a complete picture of the student's literacy growth. Laubach Literacy New Brunswick suggests you engage in regular assessment of your learner's progress and to perform a standardized test at least once a year. We recommend every January as it's a good way to start the new year. We're now at the end of the module on goal setting. In this presentation, you should have learned how to get to know your learner better, elements of the goal setting process, tips for setting goals, how to match goals with learning objectives and evaluation, how to develop SMART goals from the sample learner profile, and finally, the types of assessment you can use for ongoing learner evaluation. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to discuss it with your tutor coordinator at your council or contact us here at Laubach Literacy New Brunswick.